A new Vietnam War memorial honoring more than 200 local service members is set to be unveiled in Piedmont Park. For many veterans, this moment has been decades in the making. Joining us live in the streaming studio is Reverend Eldson J. McGhee. Sir, you currently serve as the chair of the Fulton County Veterans Empowerment Commission,
Yes.
and you've been a key figure in spearheading the memorial effort. Can you first talk to me about what this moment feels like, finally getting this memorial in Piedmont Park?
Well, I was wounded in combat in Vietnam in 1968. One of my best friends that went to high school with me from Atlanta was KIA in Vietnam.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I didn't know about that until I got home. My family didn't want to tell me about it, and I guess I had a survival guilt complex, not just for Lewis Herman, but for, I learned later that 6 guys that went to my high school was also KIA.
Oh my gosh.
So I had this burden on my spirit, my conscience, that I made it back, but they didn't. So I started Vietnam Veterans Chapter in Atlanta in 2001. Vietnam Veterans is the nation's only veteran service organization that's congressionally chartered for the needs of Vietnam-era veterans and their families.
Wow.
So, but our foundation is that never again will one generation of veterans abandon another one. So we have worked since getting home. First of all, I had to work on myself with PTSD and TBI. I had head injuries, and that took a while. That was a burden. After working on that, I started realizing that I had this survival guilt that I had to overcome. And the only way I could overcome it is to make sure that the country, and especially my hometown, honored my homeboys that were killed and didn't come back. And I set out to tell that story. And that was a sense of therapy for me.
Well, your work is so powerful because it's so honest. You were so young when you went to war in 1967. Mm-hmm. How did you feel when you learned you were being sent to Vietnam?
Well, now, this is a crazy story, right? I wanted to go in the military when my mom was my only son. My mom had got the exemption papers for me not to be drafted because of my only son status, and I wanted to go because all of my classmates was being drafted, so I actually volunteered for the draft.
Wow.
Didn't have a clue about Vietnam. My mom did, but I wasn't. It wasn't social media then, and I wasn't into TV out that much. I was in the parks and we're growing up. So I didn't even feel Vietnam until I got there.
Wow.
When I got there, I was supposed to be with the 101st Airborne, but when I got to Cam Ranh Bay, the 173rd was at Dak To, which was one of the major battles of Vietnam. So they changed my orders, and I went straight to Dak To.
Oh my gosh.
And that was that's when I got scared.
Of course, that's terrifying.
That's when I really got scared, when I got there and saw the smoke and the heavy and the fire and, just being thrown into action right away. It was terrifying. But the training that I had as an infantryman empowered me to survive with God's hand. With God's hand.
Just gave me chills right there because you are explaining such a painful and difficult scene that must have been so hard for so many young men who were not prepared for what that was going to look like, but even more so unprepared for what it was going to feel like when you came back home and didn't have that support that veterans should always have. So how did that feel like for you when you came home and the country was a very different place than you had left?
Well, actually, I tell my story in this book, Short Change, Memoirs of an American Combat Vet. I was spit on coming through Fort Lewis,
Oh
Washington.
my gosh.
And I guess that was the realization that my war wasn't popular. I was expecting a hero homecoming,
Of course.
and I got a zero homecoming. It was, the rejection was really catastrophic because of PTSD and the rejection. Ooh, it just sent me on a different path.
Of course.
In
And you,
life.
you talk about that path a lot in your memoir, and I do want to bring that up because I think it's so important for people to understand the struggles that you went through once you got home. Can you talk to us about that?
Ooh, 15 days after I was home, I was in a padded cell in Fulton County Jail. PTSD was not diagnosed, recognized until 1980. So I spent 20 years or 25 years in darkness, which included incarceration, drug addiction, and many suicide attempts. So it was really catastrophic homecoming. But the love of my mother and my family, even when I was going through the incarceration and the realization in prison where I first started getting treatment because the VA was not treating PTSD or mental illness at that point. So when I got to prison, got in the federal system, they started treatment for veterans coming to prison because there was thousands of us.
And the fact that so many of you just needed that support, that love, bring it back to the current day. Now that you're finally getting that memorial, it's being unveiled this weekend in
Yes.
Piedmont Park. Just lastly, what does that mean to you to have that marker of your service?
Well, it means more to me than I think all the people in Fulton County that and the city of Atlanta has been doing to put it together. Michael Julian Bond has been a godsend to this project because he fought. We started in 2016.
Wow.
And we have fought to get this project through. He did, and when Andre became mayor, he signed off on it. And it just was a lifting of a burden for me because I realize now I have told that story.
Wow.
I
So
have told that
powerful.
story.
Thank you so much for your service, for your dedication to our community, and for your passion to raising awareness. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.